Hello, I am Miss Savannah Starks, the Associate Director of Bands at Beechwood Independent Schools. I teach 5th grade general music and then also 6 through 12 band here at the school. If you found this video or set of videos, that probably means you have access to the drum major demonstration and explanation document, or you found these videos on YouTube to try and get better at conducting or preparing for your drum major audition. Either way, these videos are here to help, and if you have any other questions, please reach out to me at Savannah, SAVANNAH, .Starks, STKRAS, at beechwood.kyschools.us, and Beechwood is BEECHWOOD, not like a sand beach. But anyway, just please reach out if you have any other questions. I hope these videos are helpful, and have fun and work hard. Now, before I even start talking about conducting and the different patterns and what you need to do, make sure you watch the other videos in the document. Those videos were done by Samuel Crawford, former drum major of the Bluecoats, and I thought his videos were awesome, and when I was a drum major, I always looked to him for conducting and how he conducted. So really watch all of his videos because they're amazing. Before I start showing you anything else within my own videos, I wanted to explain that you always need a prep beat before you start your pattern. So what does that mean? That means you need to make sure your pattern is in motion one beat before you even start your pattern. And this goes for your slow pattern, your fast pattern, literally any pattern you're gonna do. So for example, if I'm doing 4/4 focal point or slow pattern, I would need to make sure that I initiate on beat 4 before I get to my beat 1. So that would look like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. So you saw I initiated, I bounced up with my wrist on 4, 4, 1, 2, 3, and then I finished out the rest of my pattern. Same thing with fast pattern. This is still 4/4, but this is the stop pattern. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. So I'm always gonna make sure that I bounce up on beat 4 or beat 3, whatever last beat of your time signature you have. You're always gonna bounce up one beat before your first beat 1. If you don't do it right on time, exactly one beat before your beat 1, you will be late. So that is super important to consider before you even start conducting any pattern. First, I'm going to start with fixed point pattern cutoff. So this would be your slow pattern, or you can also hear it as your focal point pattern. I like to separate these cutoffs into two different categories for the fixed point pattern. The first is 2-beat prep cutoffs, which is the one you'll primarily use, and then 1-beat prep cutoffs, and this is for usually cutoffs on 2 and 4, which are not as common as, say, beats 1 or beats 3 in a 4/4 pattern. First, to start off, I'll show you 4/4, since that's probably the most common time signature. It'll look like this. I'll give you 2 measures of 4/4 and then cut off on the last one. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. This is what 3/4 would look like. 2 measures. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. And you could see in that one I did a little bit different. On that one I turned my hands over, flicked on our ictus points. You can do that with your hands turned over or to the side. I personally like the sides, but it's honestly just a personal preference. I think this looks a little bit more clear and you don't have to flip your hands over, but it's whatever you would like to do. And 2/4, 1, 2, 1, 2, off, or 1, 2, 1, 2, off. Before you even execute a 2-beat cutoff in the fixed point pattern, you need to make sure you identify, okay, when do I need to start initiating these prep beats before I cut off? So as the name suggests, it's 2 beats before the cutoff. So in 4/4, you would need to initiate on beats 3. So 1, 2, 3. So on beats 3, instead of bouncing out for 3 like you normally would, you're gonna bounce in. So I say bounce, circle on beat 4. So I'll show you that again. 1, 2, bounce, circle, 1. On the circle, the most important thing is that you still have your flick for beat 4. You don't want it to be 1, 2, 3, 4, off, because you couldn't really see the beat on beat 4. So you still have to make sure that you're engaging your forearm so you can create that flick for beat 4, so beat 4 is still clear even though you're doing a circle. The next most common cutoff for 4/4 would be to cut off on beat 3. You need to make sure you initiate on beat 1. So that would look like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. So the rebound on 3 is still going to go out. We just add the circle. 3, 4, 1. I'll show you that again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. The other thing you may notice that's different, the rebound on 1 right before the cutoff, you can't go up for your rebound. You need to come in for that rebound. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. So before you even do your prep beats, you need to make sure what rebound direction you go in before you even start that prep. Usually it's going to be in, so you can actually hit the sides and then circle around. So for 3/4 again, you would have to initiate on beat 2 of the 3/4 pattern. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, circle, off. And then 2/4, you would initiate on beat 1. 1, 2, 1, circle, off. So now that we've covered that, 1 beat prep cutoff. So again, this will be primarily used for cutoffs on 2 and cutoffs on 4. In 4/4, cutting off on beat 4, the only difference is that we're not bouncing, we're just going to do a circle on 4. So one of the first prep beat you do is just completely taken away and it's only the circle. Cutoff on 4 would look like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. All right, so a different cutoff you can do with the 1 beat prep is cutoff on beat 2. This is probably the most tricky cutoff you will do, but I would say beat 2 cutoffs are the least common of them all. So it looks like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. The first part that's different from your normal pattern is that instead of rebounding up on that first beat 4, you have to rebound in. So you can do the circle on beat 1. So it looks like this again. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. And then the rebound on 2 is going to almost look like, it's going to make it look more like a 3/4 pattern. So you do your circle, 2, 3, 4, 1. I'll show you that all together. So it's 1, 2, 3, and on 4, 1, up on 2, 3, 4, 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. But yeah, that is how a cutoff on 2 would look. And another way you can make the 1 beat pattern a little bit more obvious that you're cutting off, you can kind of add in a stop pattern feel to the cutoff beat. For example, if I wanted to cut off on 4, since that's a little bit easier, this is what I would do: 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1. The biggest thing, if you do want to add in that little bit of stop pattern to make it the cutoff more clear, you just need to make sure your hands move fast enough to go back to 1, so you aren't too slow or don't come in late on beat 1. So that's great. Now moving on to our stop pattern cutoffs. For this one, I do not divide it into 2 categories by the prep beats. The way I divide it is fixed point cutoff, which is extremely similar, almost exactly the same to the fixed point cutoff that we learned for our slower pattern, but we're implementing it into the stop pattern. And then there's also a stop pattern cutoff. So for me personally, I like the fixed point cutoff the most because it has the most energy in the motion, and I think it looks a little bit more dramatic. And usually when you're cutting off a big chord at the end of a movement of the opener or closer, you want more of that dramatic touch, because usually you're going to be crescendoing to the very end, or the band's going to be crescendoing to the very end. So I think something more big and performative is more appropriate. So this is a cutoff on 1 in the fixed point cutoff for a stop pattern. So again, the stop pattern is our faster pattern. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. You're just bouncing on 3 and 4, or bouncing on 3, 1, circle, off. And the biggest thing, just make sure you're always cutting off on your points. Always. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, bounce, circle, off. And you just have to make sure that circle is fast enough to make sure you cut off right on 1. A lot of drum majors will be late because this motion's a little bit bigger and it's pretty fast, especially for the stop pattern. So make sure your hands are physically moving fast enough to cut off in time. If I want to cut off on beat 3, it's the same principle. You have to prep 2 beats of 4, so you have to prep on 1 and 2 to be able to cut off on 3. So that'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. That's what that would look like. Now in 4/4, if you wanted to cut off on beats 2 or 4, again, you're going to have to use a little bit of fixed point technique to do that with the bouncing. So what that would look like this is beat 4 in our 4/4 stop pattern. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. And now this is a cutoff on 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. So that's what that would look like. Again, you just have to make sure, and this is actually just a 1 beat prep now that I think about it, because all you have to do is the circle. So you just have to make sure you start your circle 1 beat before and really think about where your rebounds need to be before you do the circle. All right, let's say you want to cut off on beat 3 and 3/4. So that'll look like this. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. And the biggest thing, and I did that really slow so you could see it, but you need to make sure 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. On 3, you kind of have to use some of that fixed point technique to get back to beat 1. Because if you're stopping, you're not gonna get to beat 1 on time. So I'll show you that again. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. Awesome. Now I will show you the stop pattern cutoff for the stop pattern. And I learned this one when I was auditioning for college drum major auditions, and I hadn't seen it before. And so it's something I like to show any drum majors I work with in case they do like it. Again, I do prefer the fixed point cutoff, but to each their own. I just want to give you the tools to be able to choose what you feel like is best for you. So that's going to look like this. I'll give you 2 measures. So this is 4/4, cut off on 1, and 2 measures. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. You're kind of combining techniques in the 3/4 pattern to create that cutoff on beat 1. So again, you have to have 2 prep beats to be able to do this. So I'll show you that again slowly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, center on 3, 3, circle on 4, 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, circle, 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. This is a cutoff on 3 with that same technique. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. So it's pretty simple. You just make sure the first prep beat, you need to make sure you come in the center, and the second prep beat is your circle, and then your cutoff is after that circle on whatever beat, and then you bounce back up to beat 1 or beat 3 once you already cut off. And lastly, 2/4. Again, 2/4 is just kind of 4/4 split in half. So I'm sure you could already figure it out by yourself, but this is what 2/4 would be cutting off on beat 1. So it look like this, and this is if you're going up. So it'll be 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. Now, if you wanted to do 2/4 like this, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. Cool. Next thing, let's talk about some dynamic changes that we can do within our pattern. And usually when I talk to young drum majors or drum majors wanting to try out, the first thing they think about is the left hand crescendo or the left hand decrescendo. And I'll talk about those in a second, but I really think what young drum majors need to focus on is being able to change within their pattern without having to do anything with their left hand. Because I've judged a handful of auditions, and usually this is so strict and nothing's changing ever. Even when the music is extremely different, this looks exactly the same. If you were to watch a professional concert band or orchestral conductor or DCI drum majors, their patterns are changing all the time, even without using anything in their left hand. I think being able to show the style within your pattern is an extremely important skill to learn. First thing with dynamic changes, just changing within your pattern. First of all, your size of your pattern is going to depend how fast you're conducting and what kind of pattern you're using, fixed point or stop pattern. Once you figure out your tempo and what range, how big you can be depending on the tempo, then you can play around with size and dynamic changes. If the band is playing louder, you probably want to look bigger within your pattern. And then if there's a solo playing or a chamber ensemble playing, or the whole band is just playing piano, then your pattern needs to be a lot smaller. You could even drop a hand. Let's say we're staying at the same tempo, but there's drastic dynamic changes. How do I keep the same tempo but change the size of my pattern? What do I physically need to change? The key is if you're bigger, you need to move your hands faster compared to if you're at the same tempo but you wanted your pattern to be smaller. Again, if it is the same tempo, if your pattern needs to be bigger, you have to move your hands faster. And then at that same tempo, if the band is playing softer and your pattern needs to be smaller, you have to move your hands slower. If the tempo is 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Obviously that's very big. But now let's say there's a solo playing and I'm going to play it at that same tempo. While I still conducted at the same tempo, the varying sizes, I had to move my hands at different speeds. Let's say you really want to throw in left hand stuff with crescendo and decrescendo. You can do that, and that's fine. I would say to you, make sure you're prioritizing cutoffs and try and do more variation within your pattern with size. But if it's something really dramatic and there's not a cutoff in the middle of the crescendo or something like that, then yeah, totally go for it. The biggest thing I would tell you, make sure you don't go outside your box. You can go a little bit below your box for your left hand. Don't go all the way down back here. And then don't go so far above your head. It looks kind of silly. It looks unnatural, like you got a Barbie doll arm just swinging around. We don't want anything to look unnatural or awkward. That's a good rule of thumb. Whenever I do crescendos, so this is my ictus point, I'm going to have my hand probably right at my waist, and I'm going to crescendo from here. And I'm probably going to go a little bit above my head, but not too far. But this is the area I wanted to stay in. And then if you have coordination issues, I like to use coordination techniques. So go like this, go to the other side. You can go down and out, which I feel like that one for me is a little bit more tricky. So you can do stuff like that to help your coordination with your left hand gestures. Next, something I think is really important that a lot of people might not talk about is what our face is doing when we're conducting. Again, I'll watch young drum majors. A lot of them you can see them counting with their mouths, and they're not really thinking about what's going on in the music because they're so worried about staying in time. Really try to avoid counting out loud, just like playing an instrument. Make sure you're counting in your head. If you need to click your tongue, like, you can do that because it's not as obvious than 1, 2, 3, 4. There was one time I wasn't conducting, but I was like a solo performer in my band, and it was Grand Nationals, and I was doing some hand movements, and I got up on the big screen, which was really cool, but all I was doing was counting, and it looked very out of character when you got up close to my face, and I felt very silly. I was like, oh, that looks kind of amateur. It doesn't look professional. A DCI drum major isn't going to be counting out loud. Or a DCI color guard member, you're not going to see them mouthing 1, 2, 3, 4. Try to avoid that. It doesn't look like you're in the moment. To avoid that, I would say try and always breathe with the band, especially if you're a percussionist. This is going to be a little bit harder for you maybe, but always make sure you're taking in breaths with the band and breathing with them. Physically do it, and that's going to help you be more connected to the band as well. If there's an intense moment, make sure your face looks intense. If there's a gentle moment, a pretty beautiful duet, make sure your face reflects that. That's going to help embody that in your hands and how you look and perform as well. Welcome to the end of this long video. Now, if you've made it this far, this means either you skipped to this section or you watched all the way through. Thank you if you have watched all the way through this video. I hope it's been helpful. The last thing I would like to discuss in this video is your purpose as a drum major on the podium. While it's very important that you have good leadership skills, a good personality in front of the band when you're not on the podium, it's also equally as important what your personality is on the podium and how you're performing on the podium. Let's say you just got drum major and you just did your first performance. My first question to you is, did you have fun and did you perform? If you are not having fun and you are not performing on the podium, your band is not going to have fun and they are not going to perform. You could probably argue, well, they're not even looking at me half the time, which, by the way, is probably true. But you want to be so good and so visually inspiring that your band members want to look at you. They want to watch you because you completely embody the music the band is performing. So what I'm saying to you is that your main purpose outside of keeping time is to inspire your band through your conducting and through your performance. And if you can keep your band engaged with what you're doing, then you are doing your job. Now, it is so important that you have all of your conducting fundamentals down, because if you don't have those fundamentals down, then your pattern isn't clear and your band isn't even going to be able to understand what time you're giving. So if you're not doing the fundamentals well, they're definitely not going to watch you. So I want your goal to be, for when you leave the judging room, I want those judges to think, wow, that was so inspiring and I was so excited to watch them. It was so exciting to watch them. Or I want a band member to come up to you, at least one band member during the season to come up to you and say, watching you made me want to push harder, and watching you was so exciting, and I felt that. I felt that through your performance. And if you get one band member to feel that way, your band is one person better. It's one performer better because of what you gave to the band. The band is only going to give back what you put in. Always think about, what does the music mean to you, and how can I physically convey that in my conducting? And if you're successful in that, then I guarantee you will inspire many within your performance, on the field, to the judges, to the audience. And that's the goal. You want to inspire your band. Outside of that, I just want to say thank you again for watching these videos. I hope they were helpful. Again, like in the beginning of the video, please contact me if you need any help. My name is Savannah Starks, and I teach at Beechwood Independent Schools. So just look me up, find my contact information, and I'll be glad to answer any questions. Good luck, work hard, and have fun.